Hi, folks. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, here today with a few more tips for those brand new CW operators out there who are trying to figure out how they're going to go about and contact people and exchange the information they need. And how to do it with as little stress as possible is really what it's all about. Today, I want to look at something that happens to all of us when we first get on the air. And it's very common, from what I get from talking to people and so on. And that's how do we lower the stress level when we're making our first few contacts? Not the first one. First one's fine, right? The first one, stress is going to be through the roof, especially if you're doing it on your own, which is what I did. If you're doing it with a club, many of the clubs will have an arrangement set up whereby you can make your first contact, maybe with one of the instructors in the club or from someone who likes to help out. So you can get your first contact out of the way, and they try and lower the stress as much as possible. And LICW, which again, full disclosure, that I teach some of the beginners in, they do that as well. When you get up to that point where you're ready to get on the air, you can do it with the help of the club. So they try to lower that stress from what for many is, yeah, pretty scary moment. There's a lot of key fright and so on, and nerves, and you're embarrassed that you might make mistakes, and really, no one cares at all. Honest to goodness, they do not. But what comes after that? So you've had your first contact, and then what? Now you're left sitting there going, oh, I have to find people to talk to on my own. And how am I going to do that? And what am I going to say? And what are they going to think? So I find actually, in my own case, it wasn't the first contact that was scary. I expected that. What I didn't expect was suddenly faced with the fact that now I had to go out and talk to people who, they weren't there to help me. They were there to have a conversation. Whole different ball game. And it can be, I think, as scary, if not more scary than that initial contact. And part of this, of course, is you want to talk to people. What do you say? So, what I hope to do today is just give you a couple of ideas as to how you can lower the stress a bit. I guarantee you there will still be some, but just turn down the temperature a little bit, get you a little bit more comfortable. Because really, what you need to do once you've made your first contact, now you've got to make more and soon. Otherwise, it becomes almost insurmountable, that fear of talking to someone. So I always say, after your first contact, stick around, try and make more. I was very fortunate the first day that I went on and I called CQ and nobody answered, which was probably in my case, I was thinking pretty good. But I went into the SKCC, which I'm a member, and yes, membership there is free, Straight Key Century Club. And I simply posted, I'm new to CW, trying to make my first contact. And they were great. Three guys. Three guys came on, one after the other, to get the contact, and that was really good. So, you sign off, you're really pleased with yourself, and then now I've got to go find someone to talk to. And what happens if I don't know who they are? I don't know their call sign. I don't know their name. I don't know where they live. All stuff that we generally exchange. So I thought this video will just look at that and maybe try and calm you down a little bit and give you something to look forward to. So the whole video here is about, different techniques or ways, and I'm sure there's many more, that you can lower some of the stress once you're on your own and that first contact is out of the way. Now, remember, you're not required. There's nothing that says you have to call CQ. Calling CQ by itself is scary because you have people who are answering you and sending their call signs, and you're trying to pull their call sign out of the noise or whatever, write it down, and then get your brain organized to answer them and so on. So, for those first few contacts, do you really have to call CQ? Definitely not. You can answer CQs, and CQs, when you answer them, It is a lot less stressful than calling CQ and trying to pull those call signs out and make sure you get them correct. So that's one piece of advice. Start there. Start with answering CQs and see how that works. Now, to give you an example, a lot of people start with POTA. I mean, POTA's pretty easy script to do. They have examples that so you know what's being said, and it's a very simple one. So I think the vast majority, at least certainly of new Morse code operators that I talk to, start with hunting POTA. It's a very simple script. So for that particular purpose, what you can do is make yourself a script, right? When you're on there and that operator comes back to your call sign, and all of a sudden the jitters set in and head freeze or whatever you want to call it, make a script. You know what the other operator's going to say, and even if it isn't exactly what you have on your script, you can follow along. So I'll give you an example. All right, so here's a very simple one that I use for POTA when I started. Actually, I still have it up on my wall. So it's simply a script. There's my call sign, so I can't miss it. I can write down the name of the park, the park number, the state they're in, and even the person's call sign. So it's all there. The information that I need, I can fill that out. And there's sort of the sequence. There's what I'm going to call, answers my call, I answer, and so on. So a couple of things here. Where you see the UR, and you could say instead of UR, you could say RST. Don't get complicated. Keep it simple. Either 55N for 559 or 5NN, 599. You don't need to write out great big long series of numbers. You don't need to actually send the letter 9 as an or the number 9, I should say. You can use the letter N. And your BK, then he wraps up. So it's a very, very simple one. But notice it's big print. A big print that you can see it hanging on a wall. And I'll show you that in a little bit. But that just gives you a little guidance. So what happens now if, let's say, you're in another event where it's not as simple and as structured as this, because here you don't need the hunter's name. You don't really need his state because you've got the park number and you've got the state because it's all showing on the POTA website. So very, very simple. Now here's the POTA website to see what I mean when we say it's relatively simple, because there's the person's call sign. Now he's been on 22 minutes ago, so may not still be around. Whoops, there's the frequency, right? 7046. There's the park. There's the state, West Virginia. That's all you need. If you look down further into this one, again, same thing. This is 14051. So this person is in United States Park 2177. All stuff that if you've hunted POTA in single sideband, There's the state, Georgia. And look over here, 18 words per minute. So the speed that that person is sending at. You can log into that frequency, dial it up and see if you can hear them and if you can understand them. You may want to try them if you said 18 words per minute. Or you may go down here and hear someone at 15 words per minute. So you can look and see, in most cases, the speed that they're sending at. And that will give you an idea whether, if someone's doing 25 words a minute, they may not want to answer someone who's only doing 10 or 12 words a minute. But you can always try. It never hurts. But all the information is there on POTA. So you've got all the information that you need to confirm your contact. So that one sheet, I'll just jot down the information, jot down the park, the state, and you're good to go. So it's relatively simple. So this way, when that person answers you and you're thinking, oh my goodness, what do I say? You've got a sheet. Just look at the sheet, send what's on your sheet, send the BK so it goes back to him. No panic, no worry, because you've got in front of you what you need to send. You're not trying to do it off the top of your head, not trying to remember it. It's right there in front of you. It's a nice, easy way to get into hunting parks and getting some contact, which is what it's all about. So POTA has a very simple format, which is one reason I think probably the vast majority of new Morse code operators start with hunting parks in Morse code. And it's a fun way to do it. You get the immediate reward because if the guy copied you properly, there they are the next day. They've posted, and you can see, yes, you had a valid contact. So POTA has been very good for that. But what about other instances? Let's say you're listening and all of a sudden you hear somebody calling CQ and you want to talk to them. Well, what do you need? In order to make it a valid contact, essentially, you're going to have to get their call sign right. That's absolutely crucial. You're going to need the RST. And again, that can be as complicated as you want to make it. And you're going to need their QTH, basically their province, state, country. If it's a more informal contact, a lot of the operators will give you their city plus their state, province, or country. And again, it's always nice to have the name of the person that you're talking to, because you can refer to them in your discussion. Going back and forth makes it a little bit more personal. So how do you get that? What do you have to do? Pretty simple, really. So you're going to need the basic information for this individual. So what are you looking for? The call sign obviously has to be copied correctly. And maybe you have to copy it 5, 6, 7 times, listen to it before you're pretty sure that you've got it right. I've listened to some, a dozen times before I'm really convinced I've got that call sign right. So then just go to QRZ. So for instance, if I'm calling CQ, you type in VE3SVQ, and here's what comes up. All the information you're going to need. You've got my call sign. You have my location, Metcalfe, Ontario. You even have my name. So lots of things that you can talk about. So what do you need next? You need the RST, which when you're starting off, like I say, keep it simple. 5NN or 55N, something like that when you're first starting. As you get a little bit more comfortable, then you can start sending the full numbers. But in the beginning, it's all about keeping it simple and keeping the stress down. So there's one way to find the person. On one of the other videos I did, I've referred to the reverse beacon network. And again, even on there, they also give the person's call sign. And if you click on the call sign, most often it will bring you to somewhere on QRZ. So QRZ becomes your source for a lot of the reasons to lower some of your stress. Now, some of the events that you go into, especially when you're starting off, I like the SKCC and their events. I find they're a lot of fun. LICW also has the LICW Challenge and so on. So, a lot of the organizations that promote Morse code have events. Now, some of them require a number exchange. In other words, your membership number. So, for instance, there's mine there, 27604, which is my number for the SKCC. And that's something I have to be able to send and the other operator obviously receive in order to get credit for that contact. Now, will you remember that number off the top of your head? Probably not. So make yourself, I don't know, poster, sheet of paper. There's mine. I just put all mine. There's in great big print. You can find it right away. So these are two of them. I also have one with the fists and on as well. It's relatively straightforward. I need to send my number. There it is. I can send it. LICW, same thing. There it is. I can send it. So when you're doing a number exchange, it's right there. You don't have to try and remember it and do it off your head. Again, something very, very simple. Now, a simple little thing that you can do, because when you're doing these and you've got your so-called cheat sheet, script, protocol, whatever up there, and you're trying to remember the person's call sign, which is one thing, but you also want to know their name. And if you're exchanging their number and so on, then if you're in the SKCC and some of their events, as an example, if you hold your mouse over the person's call sign, it will give you all that information. It will give you the person's name, where they live, and their membership number. Now, we were talking about making your protocol or cheat sheet. There's the one for the West, the WES, which is one of the SKCC events. So there's everything that has to be said or exchanged. So I can write down some of his information. But in the meantime, if I'm calling that person, you got that little sticky tab, write it down. All the information's there. So if I need to send more to him or if we end up chatting,
already know what he's going to send. He's going to send my RST, whatever it is. He's going to send his QTH. In this case, looking at my yellow card, it would be Ontario. He would send his name, Keith, and then he's going to send his membership number, which I've jotted down as well. So there's no stress when I'm answering him. I have all that information. I can even add something, if I'm sending or wrapping up, I should say, to him, I can say, thank you, Keith, good luck, and so on, and make it personal. So it's an easy way to do it. These little yellow pads, the small ones like this, where you can just stick them. That's really easy. And give you an idea, we were talking about cheat sheets. Well, there's mine on a stand for that event. Everything I need to know, so I don't need to panic. And earlier I was talking about making the print big enough. Well, that print's big enough for me to see. All right, no problem there. Now if I go up, here's my computer, you can see it. Let's look on my wall. There's my POTA Hunter. So if I don't have it on a stand, I can just glance up. If for some reason I get brain freeze and forget what I'm going to say, it's right there. Move across. There's some of the SKCC. There's the K1USN. There's all my membership numbers. It's all there. Easy to see, easy to send when all I have to do is glance up or glance over on to whatever's on my stand.
So there you go. Just a couple of ideas to try and lower the stress level when you're making those calls after you've made your first one and now you're trying to make additional calls. And like I say, I always found them to be almost as stressful as the first one. But when you do this and you do it this way, where you've got everything written down so you can follow what the other guy's going to say, or pretty close what he's going to say, you know what you are going to say as well, you're all set. That's it for this video. Please like, share, comment. Always like your comments, enjoy reading them. And again, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll have a chance to chat on the air, or maybe exchange information in a contest. You never know. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, wishing you a great day. 73.